They've been lying to you from the very start. The biggest secret isn't hidden away in government vaults or ancient temples. It's right inside your own mind. For centuries, they've worked non-stop to keep this knowledge locked down. The knowledge that could set you free and that threatens everything they've built. At the core of this hidden truth is a small, mysterious gland deep in your brain. The pineal gland. Ancient Hermetic masters believed it was the gateway between this physical world and higher realms, a bridge to states of consciousness far beyond anything you've been taught. But you were never meant to find out about it. Instead, they buried this info under layers of ridicule, misinformation, and fear. Because if you really understood what the pineal gland could reveal, you'd become impossible to control, and that terrifies them. For thousands of years, the Hermetic masters protected a truth so powerful, it was only whispered among a select few. They understood something modern science is just starting to glimpse. The pineal gland isn't just a simple organ tucked inside your brain. It's a sacred portal, a direct link to dimensions beyond what your senses can detect. Sitting at the center of the brain, this tiny, pine cone-shaped gland has been called the seat of the soul by philosophers and mystics for millennia. To the Hermetics, this wasn't just a metaphor or superstition. It was a real map. They believed the pineal gland was designed to let humans access states of consciousness beyond ordinary perception, connecting directly to higher planes and universal intelligence. But this knowledge wasn't meant for everyone. Hermetic teachings weren't written for casual readers or academic debates. They were carefully guarded and only passed on to those who showed discipline, integrity, and readiness. These teachings included ways to activate the pineal gland, practices that helped people experience deep mystical states, heightened awareness, and access a level of consciousness that made them immune to control. It wasn't about religion or dogma. It was about true freedom, the complete sovereignty of the mind. The Hermetic path is built on the idea, as above, so below. The universe reflects itself infinitely, and the vast cosmos exists within the small human body. They believed the pineal gland was the bridge between these worlds, a receiver and transmitter of energy and consciousness that connects us directly to the fabric of reality. And that's exactly why this knowledge had to be hidden. When people understand their own power, they become ungovernable. Those who awaken to their higher consciousness stop bowing to outside authority, stop chasing material distractions, stop fearing fake constructs or submitting to arbitrary systems of control. Over time, as religious empires rose and power centralized, Hermetic wisdom was pushed underground. The forbidden methods to activate the pineal gland were dismissed as occult nonsense or mystical fantasy, discredited by those who benefited most from the public's ignorance. Fear was their weapon, ridicule their shield. Anyone exploring this was branded dangerous, heretical, or crazy. They couldn't risk people discovering that ultimate freedom never came from governments or spiritual institutions. It's always been inside them. That's why this knowledge isn't openly taught today. Even modern science treats the pineal gland cautiously, reducing it to just a regulator of melatonin and sleep cycles, ignoring the deep traditions that point to something much bigger. But some researchers are beginning to encounter things they can't explain. How this tiny gland produces powerful neurochemicals linked to extraordinary states of consciousness. What the Hermetics discovered through intense practice and inner work, science is only now starting to confirm. The forbidden method involves a precise mix of breathwork, focused visualization, frequency alignment, and intense intention. These aren't casual meditations or daydreams. They're disciplined practices honed over centuries to unlock hidden parts of consciousness. The Hermetics understood that consciousness isn't trapped inside the brain. It's a vast, unlimited field beyond time and space. And the pineal gland is the key to reaching it. People who've gone through this activation report profound experiences. Visions, a non-linear sense of time, encounters with higher intelligences, and a deep feeling of unity with all existence. But unlike modern self-help trends promising quick fixes with little effort, activating the pineal gland requires serious discipline, a reshaping of the mind itself, a process of purification and focus that strips away layers of social conditioning before the higher doors of perception can safely open. This wasn't about curiosity. It was about responsibility, because once those doors open, there's no going back. Today, this entire approach is buried beneath cynicism, distraction, and spiritual fakes. We're told to laugh at these ideas, fear them, or dismiss them as pseudoscience, while being pushed deeper into cycles of consumption, obedience, and fake happiness without ever questioning why the door to higher consciousness stays locked. But the door was never locked from the outside. It's always been within your reach. For centuries, the idea that the pineal gland could unlock higher states of consciousness was dismissed as mystical fantasy, kept hidden in secret circles and ancient texts. But as science advances, cracks are forming in the wall separating so-called spiritual nonsense from real science. The more we learn about the brain, the more threatening this truth becomes to those who have long denied these ancient teachings. Because behind the language of neuroscience lies what the Hermetics knew all along. Consciousness isn't just brain chemistry. It's something far deeper. Modern neuroscience recognizes that the pineal gland helps regulate our circadian rhythm by producing melatonin, the hormone that controls sleep. But that's just scratching the surface of what this gland might really do. Its unique spot at the geometric center of the brain, surrounded by cerebrospinal fluid and supplied by a rich blood flow, has led some researchers to suggest it might be specially positioned to interact with electromagnetic fields. Its structure includes tiny calcite crystals that have piezoelectric properties, meaning they can generate electrical charges when subjected to pressure or shifts in frequency. This isn't some wild pseudoscience. These properties are measurable, observable, and well documented. While the Hermetics didn't use the language of biochemistry or quantum physics, their practices were designed to engage exactly this phenomenon, stimulating the pineal gland through precise vibrational techniques. Frequency is an invisible force that modern science is only beginning to fully understand. Sound waves, electromagnetic waves, even brainwave patterns carry frequencies that influence our mental state. The Hermetics knew that by introducing specific frequencies, through chanting, breath control, or meditation, they could shift the brain's frequency to resonate with higher vibrational planes. This resonance isn't just a metaphor. It's a real, measurable interaction where brainwave patterns synchronize with external frequencies, potentially triggering neurochemical responses that open altered states of awareness. Then there's the chemical side of things. Some studies suggest that under certain conditions, the pineal gland might produce endogenous dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, a substance often linked to profound mystical experiences, near-death events, and transcendental states. People who report out-of-body experiences, visions of beings of light, or a powerful sense of unity with the universe, often describe states very similar to those induced by DMT. The Hermetic activation method, which combines breath control, visualization, and frequency alignment, may create the exact internal conditions for this naturally produced DMT to be released, allowing practitioners to enter these expanded states without any external substances. Even mainstream researchers are starting to accept that consciousness might not be confined to the brain itself. Theories like the holographic universe and non-local consciousness suggest that our minds might tap into a field of information beyond our physical bodies, a concept perfectly aligned with Hermetic teachings. In this model, the pineal gland doesn't generate consciousness but acts as a tuner or receiver, letting us access different layers of reality depending on its level of activation. The more balanced and coherent those internal frequencies are, the deeper the access to this broader field of consciousness. But despite growing scientific evidence, this research area is still controversial and heavily stigmatized. Institutions tied to pharmaceutical profits, political control, and rigid academic structures have no interest in opening these doors. Because once you accept that consciousness isn't limited to brain chemistry, the whole materialist framework that supports modern control systems starts to fall apart. A society built on fear, consumerism, and obedience depends on keeping people disconnected from this truth. The forbidden Hermetic method, long mocked by mainstream authorities, doesn't rely on blind faith, but on precise, repeatable techniques that bring body and mind into harmony. Modern brain imaging shows that deep meditation doesn't just change brainwave patterns, it actually reshapes brain structures, boosting connectivity in areas linked to higher consciousness, empathy, and intuition. Breathwork, once dismissed as simple relaxation, is now proven to influence the autonomic nervous system, heart coherence, and even gene expression. Science is catching up, but few are willing to openly connect the dots because the implications are too unsettling. At its core, the forbidden Hermetic method isn't about believing in magic. It's about understanding how physiology and consciousness interact, how vibration, breath, and focused intention can shift brain states, trigger powerful neurochemical releases, and open the door to a far wider reality. The ancients might not have had our modern scientific terms, but they mastered the practice. They knew the pineal gland wasn't just a gland, but a portal. And for those disciplined enough to activate it, reality itself would never be the same. If the Hermetics discovered a way to unlock the highest human potential, you have to ask, why don't we all know about it? Why isn't this taught in every school, practiced in every community, or supported by governments that claim to promote human progress? The brutal truth is this: a population awakened to its full potential can't be controlled. This knowledge wasn't lost by accident. It was intentionally buried throughout history. Those in power have always feared what they couldn't control. Hermetic teachings threaten not just dogmatic religion, but political and economic systems built on hierarchy, submission, and ignorance. The rise of organized religion was a turning point. As empires grew, centralized religions became tools to unify populations under strict belief systems. These institutions needed obedient followers, not seekers questioning the nature of existence. Mystical paths focused on direct experience of the divine, like Hermeticism, Gnosticism, and other esoteric traditions, were quickly branded heretical, dangerous, even demonic. The Church couldn't allow people to bypass its gatekeepers and access divine knowledge on their own. The pineal gland represented that exact threat, a personal gateway that made priests, rituals, and intermediaries unnecessary. So it was condemned, its practitioners persecuted, and entire bodies of knowledge destroyed to protect control. But religious power was only half the story. Political rulers also knew the danger of awakening. Citizens who see reality as flexible, connected to higher consciousness, can't be easily manipulated with fear, division, or fake crises. These people don't chase material distractions or status symbols. They reject blind obedience to debt, consumerism, and wage slavery. Instead, they become sovereign, self-directed individuals, fulfilled inside and immune to fear-based control. In a world where control depends on mass conformity, that kind of personal sovereignty is revolutionary. Fast forward to today, and you'll see the same system still in place, just way more sophisticated. Science is now wrapped up tightly with corporate and political interests, and it quickly dismisses or mocks any exploration that challenges its materialist story. The pharmaceutical industry profits off a population that's cut off from its own healing power. Mental health issues are treated with drugs that numb symptoms instead of addressing root causes, while deeper healing through inner work gets pushed to the sidelines. Big institutions pour billions into keeping up the illusion that your mind is broken and only they can fix it. The entertainment industry plays its part too, flooding you with distractions, training you to chase pleasure through consumption, and pushing the idea that anything outside the accepted norms is either ridiculous or dangerous. Movies and TV shows that touch on expanded consciousness often painted as mystical nonsense or something only unstable people get into, quietly sending the message that smart, rational folks don't go there. And so the repression continues, more invisible and sneaky than ever. But the real genius of this control is how it gets you to police yourself. You hesitate to explore these ideas, not because anyone outright told you not to, but because of social conditioning passed down through generations. The fear of being laughed at, the fear of being called a conspiracy theorist, the fear of stepping outside socially accepted boundaries. All of this keeps you locked into a limited version of reality. The most effective prison is one where the prisoner holds the key but never dares to unlock the door. The forbidden method threatens all of this. It offers not just a wider perception of reality, but freedom from the very systems that keep you passive. And that's why they've worked so hard for so long to keep this knowledge from you. Because once you start waking up, once you peel back the layers of conditioning, you begin to see just how fragile their power really is. The whole system depends on your ignorance. Your awakening is their downfall. Long before you even grasped what control meant, the system was already shaping your perception from the moment you entered this world. Layers of conditioning were quietly installed, starting with what seemed like harmless rules, phrases, and routines that set the stage for a life of obedience. You were never taught to explore your own consciousness. You were taught to stay inside the lines. Schools had you memorize facts, not question the story. You were rewarded for following the rules and punished for thinking for yourself. Every bell, every grade, every gold star wasn't just education. It was conditioning. The same system that silenced ancient Hermetic wisdom found ever more clever ways to program modern minds. Think back to your earliest school days. When were you really encouraged to think critically? Real questioning of authority, of accepted history, even of reality itself, was never part of the plan. Instead, conformity got quietly rebranded as intelligence. Those who asked too many questions were often labeled troublemakers or distracted. And while you learned to play by the rules, deeper societal forces were embedding a script into your subconscious. Accept what you're told. Trust authority. Stay within what's normal. This programming didn't stop at school. It kept going with everything you consumed. Kids' shows, cartoons, and movies all told simple stories of good versus evil, heroes and villains. But look closer, and you'll see the same story repeated again and again. The hero fights to protect the status quo. The villain is always the one who questions or shakes things up. Rebellion is dangerous. Obedience is good. From a young age, you were trained to fear even the idea of questioning the system. You were taught to laugh at or pity anyone who stepped outside the lines. And so, even as adults, most people carry that same fear. The deepest questions about existence, consciousness, and real spiritual freedom remain locked behind walls of skepticism, ridicule, and social conditioning. Language itself became part of your cage. Phrases like, "Don't question it, that's just how things are," or "Be a good boy," were never innocent. They were early scripts linking obedience with safety and rebellion with danger. Over time, these phrases turned into subconscious rules that steer your behavior without you even realizing it. And once those subconscious rules take hold, the system doesn't need to control you directly. You do it yourself, stay in line, and even feel proud for doing so. That's the brilliance of this programming. It creates willing participants in their own control. Even your ambitions were shaped. Success was defined for you as climbing social ladders, getting credentials, acquiring status symbols, and fitting into predefined roles. You were never taught to seek inner truth or true freedom. You were taught to seek approval from external systems, systems that profit from your obedience. And while you chase after that success, you stay too busy, too anxious, and too distracted to stop and ask why you're chasing it at all. The forbidden Hermetic method asks you to tear down these layers. It demands you shed inherited scripts and reclaim your ability to see reality clearly on your own. But that process starts with a tough realization. Most of what you believe about your life was handed to you, not chosen by you. You were taught to see spirituality as something outside yourself, controlled by religious leaders or institutions. You were never encouraged to explore higher consciousness through your own inner faculties. The idea that you could activate something as powerful as the true potential of the pineal gland inside you was never part of your schooling. This wasn't an accident. It was intentional. The more you look, the clearer it becomes how deep this programming runs. Even now, as you read this, You might feel a little tension, a hesitation to fully believe, a conditioned skepticism whispering that it all sounds too crazy. That resistance is part of the programming, designed to stop you from going too far, because if you did, you'd discover the one truth that breaks all their illusions. You were born with everything you need to access higher states of being. The only thing standing in your way is the system that convinced you otherwise. Even when people catch a glimpse of a deeper truth, most don't take the next step. They sense something's off, that life feels strangely empty despite their achievements, but they ignore it, not because they don't care, but because something inside holds back from facing what's really underneath. This resistance isn't weakness. It's the result of years of carefully built psychological conditioning. You were trained to hesitate, to self-censor, to avoid paths that might take you outside what the system deems acceptable. So even when your intuition pushes you to explore forbidden knowledge, an inner voice whispers, "Be careful, don't go too far." Fear has been the main tool of control since childhood. You were conditioned to link questioning authority with danger. The punishment for stepping out of line wasn't often physical. It was emotional. Disapproval, shame, isolation. That feeling of being different, not fitting in, carries a heavy weight. Society made sure the cost of diving into deeper consciousness wasn't just intellectual risk, but social exile. And for most, that risk feels too high. It feels safer to stay comfortably numb within the approved reality than to risk feeling isolated. Why? Because accepting these ideas all at once would shake the foundation of entire industries. Pharmaceutical, mental health, education, and organized religion, all of which rely on keeping the illusion that your mind can only function within strict, controlled limits. The most dangerous thing you can do isn't just criticize these institutions directly. It's to realize you don't need them to reach your full potential. The forbidden method offers a path to total psychological, spiritual, and even physical freedom. But total freedom terrifies those who profit from dependence. A free mind doesn't buy things to fill an emptiness, doesn't need constant entertainment to avoid discomfort, doesn't seek approval from broken systems. It just exists in a natural state of expansive awareness, a state the activated pineal gland lets you experience firsthand. That said, this journey comes with real risks, and the Hermetics knew this. That's why the method was never taught casually. Awakening your consciousness exposes you not only to higher truths, but also to the illusions you've lived under your whole life. It tears away comforting lies and forces you to face the uncomfortable fact that much of what you thought was your identity is really just conditioning. For many, this is overwhelming. They pull back and retreat to the numbing safety of conformity. That's why so few take this journey seriously. It's not that the method doesn't work. It's that facing your own inner chains takes more courage than most can find. The real prison isn't outside control, but the deeply held belief that you can't change. But here's the truth they worked so hard to hide. You were never powerless. The pineal gland is still there, dormant, waiting for you to awaken it. The ancient method didn't disappear. It was just buried under layers of fear, distraction, and misinformation. Once you see how deep their programming runs, you start to realize just how calculated the whole system is. Every fear you feel thinking about this path was planted on purpose. The discomfort you're feeling now isn't some internal warning. It's the leftover residue of their control. They built your hesitation. They fueled your doubt. And the moment you see that, even just briefly, you start to loosen the chains they carefully wrapped around your mind. The forbidden method isn't some mystical fairy tale or a vague promise whispered by attention-seeking gurus. It's a disciplined, well-structured system based on principles refined and guarded for centuries. The Hermetic initiates who practiced it weren't chasing illusions. They sought mastery of the mind-body connection that unlocks the pineal gland's hidden powers. While modern science is only starting to scratch the surface, these ancient practitioners mapped the path with incredible accuracy. And though it was hidden by time, censorship, and scorn, the method remains as effective today as when first passed from teacher to student. At its core, Hermetic activation rests on three essential pillars: breathwork, frequency alignment, and focused intention. Each plays a vital role in creating the precise internal conditions needed to awaken the pineal gland. Breathwork is more than relaxation. It's a precise way to influence your nervous system, blood chemistry, and energy balance. Through controlled breathing, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes held, practitioners change blood carbon dioxide levels, adjust pH, and impact both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. This shifts the brain's state, preparing it for a higher level activation. But breath alone isn't enough. Frequency alignment is the next key pillar. The Hermetics knew everything vibrates, and specific frequencies resonate with different parts of body and mind. Chants, humming, tuning forks, and targeted sound frequencies were used to create vibrations that directly stimulate the crystalline structures inside the pineal gland. These vibrations, combined with breathwork, create resonance in the brain, boosting electromagnetic activity and activating the gland's piezoelectric properties. This isn't mythology, it's solid physics. Finally, focused intention may be the most overlooked but critical part. The mind's ability to concentrate and visualize clearly plays a huge role in triggering internal neurochemical shifts. Hermetic practitioners train to hold specific images, geometric shapes, sacred symbols, or flows of energy in their mind while doing breath and sound work. This trio of breath, frequency, and focus creates a powerful feedback loop where neurochemical, electromagnetic, and energetic systems come together. The result is a state where the pineal gland isn't just a passive organ, but an active interface between your physical body and higher realms of consciousness. When done right, practitioners report extraordinary experiences that challenge normal understanding. Time bends or disappears. The lines between self and universe blur. Some describe encounters with higher beings, vast universal wisdom, or overwhelming feelings of love and unity. These aren't hallucinations or fantasies. They're the result of transcending the narrow frequency range of everyday waking consciousness. The Hermetics called this tuning into higher realities, a state where the soul connects directly to universal truth, free from the limits of the senses. The Hermetic method was never sold as something easy or casual. It wasn't a quick 5-minute routine for instant enlightenment. It was a path that required preparation, discipline, and deep self-awareness before you could fully activate the pineal gland. A big part of the early work involved clearing the mind of toxic thought patterns, freeing yourself from external programming, and mastering emotional balance. Your mind needed to be strong enough to handle what it would face once the veil lifted. An undisciplined mind thrown into those states risked becoming overwhelmed or unstable. So the method was reserved for initiates ready to take on the responsibility that comes with expanded perception. In today's world of instant gratification, this kind of commitment can feel foreign. We've been trained to think knowledge can be bought, truth downloaded, and enlightenment treated like just another product. But real awakening can't be consumed. It has to be earned. The forbidden Hermetic method pushes back against the culture of shortcuts. It demands you face yourself, strip away the comfortable layers of identity and conditioning built over a lifetime, and only when you stay fully present in that raw discomfort will the portal begin to open. The power to activate the pineal gland never disappeared. It was just buried beneath layers of distraction, ridicule, and fear. The ancient Hermetics left a map, but the choice to walk the path is yours alone. Few will try it. Fewer still will stick with it. But for those who do, the payoff is nothing less than a direct encounter with the true nature of reality. An experience that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself, this world, and the hidden forces shaping it. What happens when the pineal gland is fully activated often defies words. Our language struggles to describe states of being beyond the dimensions we normally live in. Yet those who've walked this path, who've disciplined themselves to activate this dormant portal, talk about experiences that completely rewrite how they understand existence. They describe reality not as fixed, but as layers of perception, each deeper and wider than the last. Time melts away, space becomes fluid, and the sense of separation between self and universe disappears. These aren't fantasies or hallucinations, but profound shifts in consciousness that let the practitioner perceive levels of reality always there, but usually out of reach for the ordinary mind stuck in linear thinking. When the pineal gland is active, consciousness can move beyond the narrow frequencies of normal perception and connect directly with the field underlying all existence. Some Hermetic practitioners call this piercing the veil, moving past the illusion of the material world into a state where all information, wisdom, and creation exist all at once. In these expanded states, practitioners often report encounters with higher intelligences, not physical beings, but aspects of consciousness far beyond the ego-driven human mind. They experience overwhelming waves of unconditional love, wisdom, and unity. Some describe seeing their own lives, or even entire timelines, from a vantage point outside time itself. This wider perception doesn't erase individuality, but dissolves the illusion of separation from everything else. The Hermetics understood this deeply. Individuality was like a wave rising from the ocean, distinct for a moment, but never truly separate from the sea it came from. But these experiences aren't just spiritual or philosophical. They bring powerful psychological changes that ripple into everyday life. Practitioners often notice lasting shifts in how they see suffering, fear, and death. The anxieties that once ruled them start to loosen, replaced by a deep inner peace, rooted in the knowledge their existence goes far beyond this temporary body. The distractions of modern life, materialism, competition, fake status, lose their grip. What once felt so important now seems trivial in the face of such clarity. And that's exactly why activating the pineal gland threatens those who profit from control. A person who's directly connected to higher consciousness becomes impossible to manipulate. Fear no longer works on them. Consumer culture loses its hold. Political and religious systems become irrelevant. The need for outside approval disappears. They become truly sovereign, not just in theory, but in lived experience. A society full of these people would be impossible to control by the powers that run the world today. The Hermetic masters knew true freedom isn't given, it's discovered. It's inside you, waiting for you to remove the illusions covering it. The forbidden method isn't about escaping reality, but seeing it as it really is, a fluid, interconnected field of endless possibility. Once you see that, once you experience the vastness of existence yourself, the artificial limits society puts on you can no longer hold you. But with this expanded awareness comes responsibility. Awakening isn't an excuse to check out. It's a call to engage with the world from a place of wisdom and compassion. The Hermetic path teaches that the awakened person becomes a beacon for others, a steady force in a world trapped in illusion. And that's what the system fears most. Because when enough people wake up, the collective illusion starts to fall apart. The structures that rely on your ignorance can't survive a growing wave of sovereign minds seeing through the veil. The biggest threat to any control system isn't rebellion or riots. It's the quiet, steady certainty of an awakened mind. Once you see through the illusion, once you realize how deeply you've been programmed, you become untouchable in ways that scare those who profit from your obedience. They don't fear open resistance as much as they fear mass awakening. They can crush uprisings with force, but they can't control millions who no longer believe in their authority. For centuries, all major institutions shaping human behavior, religious, political, economic, have operated by keeping people confined to a narrow range of consciousness. Those who believe their existence is limited to their physical body, that their worth depends on external status, and that fulfillment comes from collecting material things. These are the people who can be controlled. Fear keeps them obedient, desire keeps them consuming, and division keeps them isolated. This cycle traps generations after generations. But everything falls apart the moment someone experiences the vastness of their true nature. Once you realize you're not your status, your job title, your possessions, or even your body, their manipulations stop working. That's exactly why Hermetic knowledge was such a threat to power structures throughout history. It gave direct access to universal wisdom without needing priests, kings, or governments. The Hermetics didn't preach blind faith. They offered tools for direct experience. The pineal gland wasn't just a symbol. It was the literal gateway to higher states. With each activation, people became more immune to fear-based control. And as more awakened, the threat to authority grew. What would happen if whole populations stopped buying into the stories that kept them enslaved? If people refused to play their assigned roles in the fake hierarchy? That fear has haunted rulers for centuries. Throughout history, those who pursued forbidden knowledge, early Gnostics, mystics, Hermetics, and many others, were persecuted, hunted down, silenced, or wiped from the record. Their teachings were demonized, their texts destroyed or hidden away in secret archives controlled by the very institutions that condemned them. This didn't happen because the knowledge was dangerous like they claimed, but because it threatened their monopoly on power. Control requires everyone to be the same. Awakening creates unpredictability. Someone who trusts their own experience of reality is far harder to manipulate than someone dependent on outside authorities to define truth. Today, repression still exists, but it's much more subtle. There are no more book burnings or public executions. Instead, forbidden knowledge gets buried under noise, ridicule, and manufactured skepticism. The very idea of exploring higher consciousness is labeled naive, foolish, or crazy. Big media floods you with distractions to keep you busy, anxious, and dependent. Schools still reward obedience and memorization, not curiosity or spiritual inquiry. Social media algorithms push shallow content, making sure anything challenging the dominant narrative stays buried. Here's the uncomfortable truth they hope you never fully grasp. These systems only exist because the threat is real. If this knowledge had no power, they wouldn't bother hiding it. The fact that elaborate controls are in place shows just how dangerous an awakened population would be to those who rule us. The forbidden method threatens to tear down modern power structures, not through violence or rebellion, but through mass inner liberation. A society made up of people no longer ruled by fear or desire is a society that doesn't need rulers. Governments would lose influence, corporations would lose customers built on manufactured dissatisfaction, organized religions would lose congregations. The economic models based on scarcity and competition would collapse. That's why repression is so relentless. If even a small portion of the population started activating their true potential, the domino effect would be unstoppable. One awakened mind inspires another. Conversations change, values shift, old stories fall apart. Eventually, the whole system crumbles under its own irrelevance. This is the greatest threat they face, not rebellion, but obsolescence. Now you stand at a crossroads most people never acknowledge. The choice is simple, though not easy. Keep following the path set for you, safe, predictable, controlled, or take the first steps to reclaim the power that's always been yours. The Hermetic path was never meant for everyone because few have the courage to walk it. But if you've come this far, if these truths have started to settle uncomfortably in your mind, then you've already begun to loosen the system's grip on you. Awakening isn't a sudden flash, but a process. It starts by questioning everything you were told to accept without question. Every belief about success, happiness, authority, even your own identity, needs to be examined. Where did these ideas come from, and who benefits when you hold on to them? The more you dig, the more you'll see that much of what you thought was true is just inherited programming designed to serve interests that don't have your best interests at heart. The Hermetic method demands discipline, but not perfection. Begin by noticing your own patterns. Pay attention to automatic reactions, the defensiveness when you hear new ideas, the fear of standing out, the craving for approval. These are all leftovers from conditioning. Observe them, question them, and slowly start letting them go. Awareness is the first key that opens deeper doors. In daily life, add intentional practices aligned with Hermetic principles. Breathwork to calm and regulate yourself. Visualization to focus your intention. exposure to frequencies and vibrations that lift your consciousness instead of dulling it. This isn't about mystical fantasies. It's about practical tools grounded in the deep connection between your mind, body, and the energetic field around you. As you practice, you'll start to notice subtle shifts, moments when the noise quiets and a sense of peace rises. Don't expect instant miracles or visions. The Hermetic path rewards steady effort and humility. Each step uncovers new illusions to shed. The goal isn't to escape this world, but to engage with it from a place of clarity, sovereignty, and purpose. True awakening changes how you interact with reality. You see manipulation without getting caught up in it. You choose your own path based on your deepest values, not empty promises made by a system designed to keep you running in circles. And as more people walk this path, the collective changes. The system built on mass conformity weakens when more individuals refuse to respond to its controls. Each awakened mind becomes a quiet beacon, inspiring others to question, seek, and remember the instincts they had as children before they were taught to forget. This is how real change happens, not through violent revolutions, but through a quiet, widespread awakening. The world doesn't need more followers. It needs more sovereign individuals who've reclaimed the keys to their own consciousness. The pineal gland is still inside you, not just an ancient biological relic, but a living portal waiting to be activated by those ready to look beyond the veil. You've been conditioned to believe this path is impossible or dangerous, but the real danger is staying asleep, chasing hollow promises while your true potential waits quietly within. If this video resonated with you, please let us know in the comments.